My next guest and myself, our careers are so just intertwined. The intersections of our careers and people we know and worked with. He is the president and CEO of Publius PR, editor-in-chief of the Publius National Post, and author of the new book, The Woking Dead, which I wish I thought of that. How Society's Vogue Virus Destroys Our Culture. AJ Rice, welcome to the program.
Andrew, great to be here, brother.
You know what's funny is that I'm turning 50, and I remember political correctness and thinking like it was the worst thing in the world until I met woke.
Correct. I mean, it's what pretty much midwifed the entire woke movement. I mean, most of this garbage begins in the late 90s.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. I was in when I was in college, and I transferred from a small 2-year school in New York to the University of Florida. And in that time, I remember the world changing when Bill Clinton became president. I remember just something was different. Rock and roll went from being fun and party-oriented and somewhat frivolous to like dark and serious and important. And then all of a sudden, there were all these new agendas, and there were all these people that you couldn't cross their little agenda lines. Then the movie PCU came out, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. But I remember sitting in classes that I had to take, like women's studies and film, thinking, what the hell do you do with this as a major? I finally figured it out.
You've only got a couple years on me, but I was the same type of thing. I was in Penn State in the late 90s, early 2000s. And I mean, I was being forced to take, lesbian literature since World War II. Like crazy.
Wait, did you take bisexual Asian poetry?
No.
Okay.
I did take bisexual left-handed pottery making.
Right.
So, I mean, look, most of the time this stuff spins up. It has a shelf life. Wokeism, does it have an expiration date? I hope it does. There aren't as many old school comedians left to bash this, like a Joan Rivers or a George Carlin. Now, some of these guys like Chappelle and others, they're fighting it. But if you're a comedian that comes along tomorrow, are you going to fight this, or are you going to go along to get paid? And that's where we're at.
Do you think the danger, I've always talked about this with political correctness and affirmative action. I've always asked, would you be the first person to let a doctor operate on your child who only got through medical school because they checked the right boxes? Would you be the first person to drive over a bridge designed by an engineer who only got into engineering school because they were transgender or something? Back in the 90s, it was funny. It was funny, quite frankly, some of these people on college campuses, and maybe like the hippies, maybe some of them grew up and grew out of it. But now we've got CEOs that talk like this. We've got people in scientific fields that are literally, right now, we can't even tell people to abstain from certain behaviors to stop the spread of monkeypox because that's homophobic. Now, follow the science went out the window. We can't talk about love wins, right? Love wins. You're only a bigot or an ally. Love is love. Okay, so we're just going to wait for monkeypox to spread? We have people in serious positions of power who are woke.
Well, look, somebody tries to offer you a vacation house built with equity and microaggressions. Are you going to do it? I don't think so. I mean, look, the reality here is that the Vogue virus that I'm talking about is, a fight for the culture. We've been staring at the China virus. They try to control us medically. It's a soft authoritarianism. But meanwhile, while they've got us locked in, they're injecting us with this, that, or the other thing. They're trying to take our fun away. They're running comedians off stages. They're basically canceling most of the great things, including American history that we love.
Yeah. And when you start to see corporations signing on to, look, it's always been, right? If you were Ford Motor Company and Jesse Jackson came and knocking, you're like, All right, I don't want to deal with this guy. What does he want, right? But now it's not the shakedown anymore. You've got people in these. You've got companies that are hiring $1 million, diversity and inclusion officers. You have this this sort of movement now that it doesn't matter if the car drives well or the microwave cooks well, or the drug works. It's, did you check all the boxes and show the equity and diversity of your company?
Right.
Now, look, organic diversity is great. That's what makes America. But saying that it's more important that you have the right number of transgender people in your airline versus whether or not they can fly the plane is a problem.
Well, right. I mean, what about diversity has to do with excellence? I mean, that's the main thing. They're obsessed with identity. And whether you're talking about Disney or the NBA, they are more than happy to not take your business or mine and take their business to China. So it's either we're going to replace Tim Allen in the new Buzz Lightyear movie with woke Captain America. You better like it. And if you don't like it, I'm going to take it to the CCT and they'll be my customers going forward.
One of the dangerous things we've been spending a lot of time on this program with the whole bigot and ally transgender thing. Now, if you don't think it's safe or right to shoot up a 9-year-old with puberty blockers, or castrate a 13-year-old boy, or perform life-altering surgery on a 15-year-old girl who might be going through a phase, you're the bad person now. I say it a lot on my radio show. The old sanity is the new insanity. Like, these people would be considered crazy and hauled out of any medical conference. Now they're running it.
Correct. Look, these people are in the mold of Dr. Mengele and Margaret Sanger. I mean, they are experimenting on our youth. It's one thing if they're trying to push 1619 into the textbooks, try to tell us that Thomas Jefferson, Alexander Hamilton were all a bunch of Klansmen. It's now physical, and they are abusing these people. These children are going to be ruined forever. So they've got the minds, and they're going after their bodies.
Yeah, where do you see a backlash? Because with every movement, right, you had disco, and the disco sucks. When I was a kid, eventually a backlash comes. It comes in music, it comes in art, it comes in speech, it comes in stand-up comedy, right? Sooner or later, this will go too far, and maybe a generation, right now they might be 15 years old, they're gonna hit a certain age and go, this is stupid.
Right. So most revolutions, especially ones that have whiffs of authoritarianism, usually eat themselves. So the Me Too movement seems to be puttered out at this point. But I think that if you look at, say, Virginia, where you had an uprising of the regular parents against some of this garbage going on, Steve and Gary going into the women's locker room, and some of the 1619 CRT social justice garbage in the curriculum, begin there. Begin in November, vote with your wallet, vote with your feet, and, fight back.
I'll give you one tipping point. I think that is underreported. When the Democrat Party was like to Hispanic voters, well, what do you mean inflation's more important than Latinx? Yeah.
I'm Irish X, by the way. You know this?
Okay. When you really think you think Latinx is more important than inflation, I think you have jumped the proverbial shark.